it's okay for them to operate the food truck or the mobile food business in the city. And so we also require them to have a commissary. The commissary is for them to store their food, excess food that is not sold that day. They have to take it down to their commissary and store it there. So we require that before we can go for their inspection, they must have a commissary. Now, there are some food trucks that have the right equipment and they can still store their food on the truck if they can maintain those temperatures. But what we prohibit is for them to store the food in their private houses. That is a no-no. So if they now filled out the application, the fire inspection has been done, and they are ready for inspection. Now, the other thing that we add to that is if they are selling potentially hazardous food, which most of them do, we require that they have a managerial certification in food protection. So if they can provide us with the receipt from the department, the receipt from the license collector's office, fill out the application from the Department of Health, show proof of inspection from the building division, which is the fire inspection, and show us the agreement from the commissary they are going to be using, or if it is a commercial kitchen, if they are using a commercial kitchen, they also show proof that they have a commercial kitchen they are using. Give us, a diagram, just a layout or the layout of what their vehicle look like, and pay. Now, before we take the payment from them, we do an assessment to see the level of risk involved in the business they are going to do. The list is $75. Those that fall midway is $100. And those that really cook a lot of potentially hazardous food, they pay $125. And then the application fee is $200. Now, with their ID, we can now start the processing of their documents. Once we have all this in place, we will call the inspector that is in charge of where the commissary is or the commercial kitchen is. He or she will be the one to go out and do the inspection. And normally, depending on how busy that inspector is, in 2 weeks, that inspection should be done and they should be ready to do business. So in a nutshell, that is what we do with the food truck or the mobile food establishment, as we call them.
Thank you, Mr. Nabian. I'm just going to go through and ask and see if members of the committee have questions. Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I will say, I have to take ownership for Ordinance 71324. That was a bill that I authored in 2022, along with the President of the Board, Megan, several other of us who are working on making sure there was a path, at least, to having food trucks in the city. At the time, it was very, it was a mess, and it was very difficult for food trucks to even get established. And I have to give some props to Janine Aragi at the health department, who helped kind of write this along with some members of our city staff. One of the complaints I get a lot still regarding this is that, not necessarily the process, but that it's not easy to kind of navigate the building division, the health division, and all these different, and even I think the most arduous, and I'm really curious to hear from the public here that are here, is that the license collector, that process is which is separate from your department, is problematic in that there's all these other licenses for all the employees. Is that something that's required by the health department? Any other additional licensing? That's simply a business license component Or in other words, is the health department the permitting, you're the permitting agency. So are you requiring any additional licenses other than, having the building division take a look, make sure you're not going to have a fire and a diagram? Are you requiring any of those other licenses?
No, I think basically the only license required from the city is the business license from the license collector's office that they are going to do business in the city of St. Louis.
Okay.
That is not a license, that is a certificate for those who are cooking, especially the manager who will be in charge of the food. They must have a managerial food protection certificate, just so that they have the knowledge of what they are doing. We want to confirm that they are not doing anything wrong. So those are the major requirements in terms of certification.
Do you know how many food trucks we have permitted right now in the city to
I'm
operate?
not sure because they go and come, they come and go, I'm not very sure since I left that position about 1 year now. So, but I know that we used to have up to 150. Yeah.
And then
850? You said 850 or
No,
100?
no, 100.
150.
Yeah.
And do you know that the permitting process requires an annual review, or is that once you get a permit, you're good to go?
Yeah, once you get your permit, you're ready to go. It's just that annually you'll be coming in for the food inspector to take a look, just to make sure you are in compliance. Yeah, and if you are in compliance, you're fine for the next year.
I think that's all the questions I have right now. I just want to say thank you to the health department. I know when we were initiating the process of making this possible, there was a large willingness to work to make it possible. So I think that there's clearly a will to make it better. And that's why we're here today. So appreciate.
Yeah,
Appreciate
I think the only concern a lot of people have now is to be able to pay online, to be able to make their payment online, and maybe that will simplify some part of what we are doing.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I have at the moment.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman Narayan.
Thank you, Chairwoman Velasquez. I agree very much with your last statement. One of the things that I hear over and over from members of the business community, basically on any business that they're doing in the city, is that they wish that they could pay online and that they wish that they didn't have to traverse through numerous offices at City Hall for the permitting process, when we've seen other municipalities be able to pivot to getting those permits and paying for those permits online. For the annual inspection that you mentioned, how does that line up with what like a brick and mortar restaurant has to do?
All right, the food truck permit is inspected once in a year, and we have a system. The system we use is called Headspace. Probably you may have heard of that. When it is that time, when it is due, the system will show and say, hey, this inspection is due. And the inspector in charge of that area will notify the proprietor or the manager or somebody in charge of that business and say, hey, your inspection is due. When are you going to be ready for us to come by and do the inspection at the commissary? Or are you going to bring your truck? Some people even bring their truck to the Department of Health there, and the inspector will just go through the routine inspection, make sure that they are in compliance.
Okay, thank you for that. And then this isn't really a health department question, I don't believe, but okay. you may know the answer just from your work with the food trucks in general. I know back in 2022 when we last passed legislation regarding food trucks, one of the issues was a real push and pull between brick and mortar restaurants that, of course, didn't want a food truck parked next to them.
Yeah.
And then the food truck operators who wanted to be able to park basically anywhere that they could legally park and sell their goods. In the last couple years, have there been any changes there? I know that some of the concerns that I've heard from food truck operators in particular is that it's basically only special events like Food Truck Friday and a party that's, maybe on private property that they can actually operate their food trucks in. Do you have any thoughts, not from a health department perspective, but just from your familiarity with the topic on the way that I hesitate to call it zoning because the trucks are mobile,
Yeah.
but on that push and pull between brick and mortar operators and food trucks?
No, I think as far as we are concerned, the food trucks that have been certified fit to operate in the city of St. Louis can go to anywhere and do business. So if any particular establishment feel that the food truck is taking over their business or taking some part of their business, we have not seen any of that. So I would say that as soon as we issue out this permit to them, they are free to operate anywhere in the city, so long as they are in compliance with the ordinance.
Okay, thank you for that. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Narayan. Alderwoman Sanye. Alderman Clark Hubbard, I see you're on. Do you have any questions or comments for Mr. Nabian?
It's okay. Thank you. I was having technical difficulty at first, so thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you for being here in the representation. I don't have any additional questions. Some were already answered, and I look forward to hearing from the public.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderwoman Sanye.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I want to thank you for coming.
Okay.
I'm very excited that you're here. I have a couple of questions, and some of these questions I would just say, I'm a new alder, and I also always try to, I think sometimes because some of us have been working here for so long, and then folks in the industry are so familiar, people in the public sometimes are not as aware or don't understand some of the things we've said, but they're like trying to follow along. So some of these things you might be like, oh, that's given. But just to be clear, I was just curious, could you just tell us more about, like you talked about when you came here, having to go through the departments. For someone who wants to open a food truck, could you give us an idea of what departments do you have to interact with and the timeline between those interactions?
Okay. Well, in the first place, the requirement for the food truck or mobile food establishment, as we call it, is on the city website. So that is the first thing. For those who are interested in getting a food truck, they should just log on to the City of St. Louis website and, type in food truck or mobile food establishment, and it will pull the requirement for them. Now, when they do that, they can go to here, the City Hall, license collector's office, and they will give them they will pay. But the license collector's office will not give them the license until we give them the permit. So for us, what we require from them is either a show proof that they have applied for the business license or a receipt. Once they get their receipt and bring it to the health department, we will now confirm from them whether their truck has been inspected by the building division. I'm saying it that way because there are people who do their inspection even before they come. So when they finish the payment at the City Hall, probably the best thing to do would be to talk with the building division and get the fire inspection done so that they can give them their paper. And then they can come with the paper, the receipt from the license collector's office, and they can come over to the health department. When they come to the health department, we give them the forms for them to fill. And in many cases, we also give them the commissary agreement, which they will just sign and take it to wherever they want to have the commissary or commercial kitchen. And the manager there or the proprietor there will sign the document, and they can add that up to the rest of the documents they have. So I think that it depends on individuals. If it takes them a day, let me just say, for the sake of our discussion, if it takes them a day to come to the city hall and get their permit and, get their payment done. And then I don't know how long it takes them to do the fire inspection because that is not under our control. But let's say it takes them another day or 2 days to do that, and they are able to bring this document down to us. What we tell them is that at least in the next 2 weeks, the inspection will be done by the Department of Health. And I know there are cases where if the inspector is not busy, they do the inspection even that day. I have had 1 or 2 cases where the inspector just said, well, I don't have anything scheduled for today, so I can just go out and do it. And they went out and did the inspection and wrote the permit for them. So it all depends on their interaction with the license collector's office and also the building division for the inspection.
Thank you. My other question, and this might be a little bit outside of you, but since you're over at the department, and I'll ask some of the business owners too, but I'm always curious about anything that you observe in the process that language barriers or kind of cultural disconnects, thinking specifically of the international immigrant community, that you think might pose a difficulty for them or something that we should take a look at as we look at ordinances and processes?
Yeah, well, yeah, there may have been few cases where, but what I have seen is that people from communities that are not very fluent with English, normally they will come with someone, either from the community who will do much of the interpretation and give them, the right direction, even when they fill out things. Then where they have difficulties, we come in and help them too. But I don't think it has really been a barrier because of this approach of coming in with people from their communities.
And we always have someone available here that can help translate if that's a need?
No, they come with that. They come with
If
people
they
from
didn't
their
know.
communities, yeah.
If they didn't, do we have it somewhere within our means to have someone to translate?
Well, you see, the problem I have is I have not really seen one.
Okay.
I've not really seen a situation. I mean, I was supervisor for food and beverage for 5 years. And if for 5 years I didn't roll into that, it is very unlikely that that's a problem that had been plaguing any of our process.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to just ask one follow-up question to Alderwoman Sanier's question. Are the permits available, the actual permits available in languages other than English at this time?
No, I think all our permits are still in English.
Okay. And I know that's something that we've been talking about at the board, and I know that
Okay.
the Office of the New Americans, if that's good to know.
Okay.
I don't have any other questions for you right now, sir. What we're going to do is we're going to take public testimony. And so what we'll do is I'll ask Madam,
Madam Chair, do we have the license collector's office here?
we do not actually, and I missed Alderman Aldrich. Alderman Aldrich, do you have any questions? I know you're a member of the board and, okay. Great. All right. So with that, Mr. Nabian, thank you for now. We might have more questions, and I think we've got members from the public here who might want to speak with you afterwards if you're able to stick around for the rest of the hearing.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. So folks, thank you for being here. As I mentioned, this is I think our third listening session. And so we obviously had the Department of Health here. They're going to stick around. I'm not going to steal too much thunder from you, Alderman Aldrich. Alderman Aldrich has a bill that he's working on pertaining to food permits that we're not going to hear today, but I think that will inform the legislation, the conversations that we'll be having at the board. But what I'd like to just say is, one, thank you for being here. We want to hear what you have to say. I'm going to ask the clerk, give everybody 5 minutes to testify, to share your story. We might have a little wiggle room on time, but I want to be aware of people's time, but also want to keep us here, get us out of here by 5. So with that, Madam Clerk, do we have folks who signed up to testify?
Yes, we have 5 people, and if anyone who came in late would like to testify, there's a sheet up on the table for you to sign up. Our first speaker is Kelly Croy.
All right, ma'am, if you could raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yeah, I do.
So help us all. And then if you could just state your name, your first and last name, if you live in the city where you're from, and or what today.
Yeah, so my name is Kelly Croy, and I work for St. Louis Development Corporation here in the Business Center, and I help food trucks owners and business owners go through the entire process from beginning to end. And accidentally kind of became the expert on food trucks because there's a lot that wasn't really in writing. They asked me to just come and explain what the current process is and what my experience has been with the entrepreneurs in my office that come through that I help. The first step, which Mr. Nabian went over, was that everybody needs to get their fire safety and pressure test from a licensed fire safety company, which is about $260 annually. And then they need to sign up for that food truck permit with the fire safety unit in the building division with Mr. Kovac, which is about an additional $75. After that, they do need to find a place to prepare their food at, either a registered commissary kitchen in St. Louis City, or they can apply for a commercial kitchen occupancy in an existing kitchen, which will also require a conditional use hearing, which will take the process out an additional 2 months before they can get licensed. Once they do have a licensed place to prepare their food, they can come here and pay for their business license to take over to the health department. I think that Mr. Nabian said that the initial fee was about $125 for that. They need to have their Safe Serve certificate as well as a copy of their menu for that. To obtain their vehicle vendor's license from the license collector's office, it's $200 for the owner and then an additional $20 for each employee. And you need to bring in passport photos from Walgreens, and they will, instead of having a business license the way that brick and mortars do, they will make a handheld kind of ID badge that instead of a license for the owner of the truck and for each of the employees. So you'll have to come back with those photos, the $200 and the $20 for each of your employees. Be registered with the Secretary of State and the tax offices. Have a copy of your health permit, proof of your vehicle insurance, and proof of your workman's compensation insurance if you have 4 or more employees. Then you're told that you have a St. Louis City food truck license, but it's mentioned that you should go speak to the street department after that. The street department offers a $500 annual license to vend only on a small stretch of market. And so I help people that go through all of these processes, and they say, what is it good for? And I say, well, you need to go pay an additional $500. And the only place that currently is good for is on market. Sometimes I have people that want to go onto private property and get a license for that, but we don't have a zoning code for a temporary setup the way other cities do, and so it's kind of like the first time we do it every time. Sometimes I've found a way to make a food permit work on private property with the building division by creating a special event for 7 different Saturdays, and I was able to get somebody permitted for that. But I've tried to do that again, and then they were asked to go to a conditional use hearing, which drug it out 2 months, and we weren't able to do it the same way every time. I've also worked with bar owners that call me that would like to have a food truck in front of their restaurant, like Venice Cafe. They don't have any food, and I said, I can help you figure this out. And there was no legal way that I could help them get a food truck in front of their establishment. I tried every angle to try to create a special event, and I wasn't able to make that happen for entrepreneurs like that. And I think that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
I'm going to guess the committee has lots of questions. Alderwoman Spencer.
My first question is, are you, and then there's an expletive, kidding me? If Venice Cafe ever has a problem, please let me know. As the alderman of that district, I'll call somebody at the street department. That's not the way we should have this done. I'm so dismayed by this process. Is there anything in this ordinance well, let me first ask, is there any other business for which we require every single employee have a badge that requires a photo ID specifically from Walgreens at $17 a pop? Because I've heard this from other food truck vendors now.
No, not
No,
currently.
is there anything in the ordinance that requires that a business owner have a badge and a photo from Walgreens for every one of their employees, whether they're temporary? I mean, part of the problem is these food trucks are operating all around the region. And, our process is so much different. And then if you've got 30 employees, 5 of which might come down for a special event in the city for one day, you've got to figure out how to get each one of these guys a badge. That's insane. I guess it's not a question, it's more just
That is
Yes.
what the license collector requires currently.
Okay.
I'm not,
well, that is something we absolutely need to break down. So overall, you've got the $500 street permit, you've got the fire safety situation at $260, another building division, $275. Then you've got, so you're talking about $1,000 plus the license collector's fee, and then all this rigmarole with going to get your badges. Is the badge specifically for food? Does it say food truck on it, or what is this?
it's written by hand with pen, and they tape it onto a piece of paper and then put it on a stretchy string, and that is your food truck license.
Is it an official stretchy string?
No, I mean, I believe it says vehicle food vendor.
It
and
says legal food
a
vendor.
vehicle food
Legal
vendor.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman Narayan.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I share Alderwoman Spencer's frustration with this, and that's not directed towards you at all. I know that you're not making up new and exciting hoops for entrepreneurs to jump through, but the idea that you would do all of that and then be permitted to work on a 500-yard stretch of street and then at special events would be incredibly frustrating, especially, I mean, so many of the food trucks that we see now are so different than, when I first thought of food trucks, you think of the food truck on a construction site where you can get, a hot dog or a hamburger for a couple bucks, but now we're seeing way more specialized things that are essentially mobile restaurants. And I think that back in 22, one of the things that Alderwoman Spencer and I had discussed with others was how to come up with a plan that made sense where we weren't going to put brick and mortar restaurants into direct competition with food trucks, because there's certainly enough space for both to exist. As you pointed out with Venice Cafe, that seems like a perfect example. And I know that there's parts of the city where some of my colleagues tell me that they wish that they had more options for dining. And then I know that there's other parts of the city where they say, hey, if you put a food truck directly outside of my restaurant, why the heck am I paying so much money to have a brick and mortar restaurant here? So ultimately, I'm just droning on, but thank you for your testimony, and I hope that this committee will consider updates to where these food trucks can operate, and then get some more direction maybe on what a license should look like and what it should cost, because these seem like just kind of ridiculous hoops to jump through when you're trying to staff up. I know restaurateurs don't have this issue. Their folks need to be ServSafe certified, and that's about it. So I think we should probably be looking at at something similar, particularly since food trucks have to deal not only with our regulations, but oftentimes the regulations of the county and St. Charles and St. Clair County and, on and on down the list. So again, thank you for your testimony. And with that, I'll yield.
Thank you. I know Alderwoman Clark Hubbard says that she doesn't have any questions for you right now. Alderwoman Senier?
First, I just want to thank you for being here and make sure that you understand that, I think our frustration is just, honestly, this may be ageist to me because I'm younger, but all of our process systems in this city are so antiquated and so outdated and, serve as additional hindrances in a lot of cases instead of setting up a system of regulation. I just want to make sure you understand that because I know you work every day to help people overcome these struggles and overcome these challenges. So just wanted to clear that up. Okay, so I know that you described the process as it is, but from your experience, since you do work with business owners of all sorts from every corner of all backgrounds, what do you observe to be like if you had to pick two of the biggest challenges in this process, specifically with food trucks, what do you see people struggle with the most?
Knowing what they need. It's not my department, which isn't directly with the city. Like you can get a food truck license from the license collectors, like sometimes, and not have every license that you need for the city. Like there's only certain things that are required. So I think just having all of the information in one place. And mostly the thing that frustrates the food truck owners the most is that they can't park on any streets and or at any meter or around City Hall. We're all hungry for lunch and we can't go outside and see them. Or I think that has been the most frustrating part for people that once they get permitted, because a lot of these are just safety and legal requirements, but once they are permitted that they can't go anywhere.
Yeah, thanks so much for that.
Madam Chair, could I just ask for clarification again on the Market Street piece, given that I just didn't understand that additional layer.
Are you asking?
Do you mind?
There's in front of City Garden, there's a few blocks on Market Street, and that is the only place that the $500 food truck fee allows you to go. And I've heard from just other, I think there are previous food truck owners here who'll speak about how much business they had there, but it wasn't something that they found was profitable.
So they're not allowed to go anywhere else?
There is a vending district that says that you can't be there is a vending district, but you also can't be within like 300 feet of a restaurant. And I've seen a picture of it today where there was no spaces between in which you could actually park because of where the vending district was and where the restaurants currently are.
Yeah, I think, and I know the intent was what Alderman Narayan pointed out. There was a concern from existing, somewhat struggling business, restaurants. I was representing Cherokee Street at the time, and there was a real concern from those businesses that there was going to be like an influx of food trucks that would make it even more difficult to make their ends meet. And so I think there needs to be some revisiting of that. But I do know the intent was to protect small businesses to be able to continue to operate. But thank you again for your service, and I have a 4 o'clock that I have to pick something up, but I will be listening to all the members of the public. This is such an important issue, and just for your testimony.
Thanks.
Alderman Aldridge? Okay. I just want to say thank you for being here. I know we want to hear from members of the public. I think just for us, I would love to see if we can work with SLDC at least to get a flow chart going. Not that it might be a bunch of zigzags at this point, but at least to have a sort of mapping out understanding of what food truck owners have to go through. And I second Alderwoman Senier's recognition that we've got some processes that really need to be updated. And I would love to see us align at least with what the county and St. Charles are doing, so it just makes sense. I mean, they are mobile. I think I would imagine that I'm seeing some nods in the audience that you all travel, right? So I mean, why are we making it harder Why are we making it harder? So thank you again for being here, and that's all I have.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk?
The next speaker is Brian Scott.
All right, Mr. Scott, I will have to swear you in, and then if you could, after you are sworn in, let us know who you are and where you're from. If you can raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth? You don't have to believe in God, or maybe you do, I don't know, but
I do.
thank you.
My name is Brian Scott, and I
And you-
am, yeah,
You can take it off the stand, that's
okay,
fine.
great. My name is Brian Scott. I am the current president of the St. Louis Food Truck Association. I will be representing the association as well as my own food truck business, which name is Doggy Max Food Truck. Yes, thank you. And so that's what I'll be talking about in reference from where I'm coming from. Everybody, including Alderwoman Spencer, oh, thank you, Madam Chair and Alderwomen, and appreciate it. This is exceptional what you all are doing, and we really appreciate it as business owners and leaders, because there has been an extreme level of frustration, discontent, and confusion about what the priorities are for St. Louis and small business owners. So we really appreciate the opportunity to have the conversation to try to better business for everybody in St. Louis. Everybody has done my job for me. Everything that I was gonna say, it definitely has been said. So I'll make some quick bullet points and then I'll just leave it for questions. Probably, Dr. Nabian, your department is the least complicated to go through. So there's that. But even with that, he mentioned 3 different permits that we need before we even come see him, or 2, and then he gets the 3rd one. So that's the 3 of 5 that we need to just do business in the city of St. Louis for that 2-block stretch between 8th and 9th of Market. This is the map. You won't be able to see it, but you can see the red. This is the map we get, and literally the only place we can vend is the spots in between the blue circles, which are our restaurants. The half-a-mile radius around the convention center is completely off limits. The half a mile around Busch Stadium is also off limits. And that's a red zone. So that's really, really off limits. But it makes it very difficult to understand, how can we do business in the city of St. Louis, especially me, having grown up in the city of St. Louis and North St. Louis on Euclid and St. Louis Avenue for most of my life, and only having access to McDonald's and Subway and Burger King, a food truck with real food would go a long way in eliminating the food deserts that we have and the malnutrition that we have in the city proper. So that would be, that's one of the sad realizations that I came to when I started the food truck business. I thought that the city of St. Louis would be my primary place to operate. It turned out to be my least frequented spot, which made no sense to me, especially with the revitalization plans that St. Louis has had over the last few decades, bringing lofts into the city of St. Louis and then providing no food after 5 o'clock for them to eat downtown with. It stood to reason to me that food trucks would and could be the primary filler of that particular food desert. So that's the one thing. I think I want to emphasize, because it's very important to food truck owners, that you all, as we, the collective people, figure out how to consolidate the licensing process. There should be one place that we go to get all of these things. I've put a lot of thought into it, and I think the only department that couldn't be consolidated is probably the health department, because of, actually having to inspect the truck and the commissary and such. But the business license, the fire permit from the building division, all of that should be included into one license. The street permit should be eliminated completely, because that is nonsensical.
Excuse me, that's 5 minutes.
Yep, if you just want to go ahead and finish your thought.
Thank you. So that is, so those permits are definitely the problem. And the last thing I wanted to say was, I actually also owned a restaurant in the city of St. Louis, and it took me maybe a week to get my restaurant business open, and probably 3 months to get my food truck business open, because of the back and forth that we have to go, and we're bouncing around the city of St. Louis. It takes a lot longer than 2 weeks, a lot longer.
Thank you, sir, for your testimony. I'm just going to go through, see if we have any questions. Alderwoman Spencer, are you still on? And if so, do you have any questions? All right, Alderman Clark Hubbard.
Oh, I'm sorry, I do. I just wanted to, with regards to sorry, Madam Chair, I didn't mean to, I was trying to unmute myself. Thank you for your testimony and all your work here. Have you gotten a written statement from the group? I know you said you were representing the food trucks community. Do you have a formal statement from that organization?
We have several statements that we sent, a plethora of letters to the city for consideration. And we're working closely with an organization called the Institute of Justice that I believe we'll hear from a little bit later. And so that's kind of where our collective voice is coming from, or funneling
Great, thank you
through.
Thank you. If we could share those with the committee, I would really like to take a look at those. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Alderman Clark Hubbard.
No, I don't have any additional questions. Thank you so much for your testimony and for being here. I'm so sorry that you all have had to go through this, and I'm glad we're in a space now where we can try to make it right.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderwoman Sanier.
No questions. I just want to say that I think that usually when people are all saying this, that like identifying the same problems, that's a good sign, because we've identified the problem. So I really love that you're the head of a big organization that works with them. What you said matches up with what everyone else indicated, because that will make it so much more easier for us to hopefully make progress on solving the issue. I won't be too ambitious to say we are going to solve it, but it will make it easier for us to make progress. So just thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a couple of quick questions. One, I want to second what Alderwoman Spencer said. Is if you could at least resend some of those letters to us or to the Red Tape Committee, because we might not have been around At that point, I might not have been around. I think that'd be helpful for us on the committee. I know you're working closely with the Institute for Justice. Can you just say how many food trucks you represent, and is it city and the county? Can you just tell us a little bit more about that?
City and the county, and we have a couple in the outskirts of Missouri as well. So we represent anywhere between 50 and 60 food trucks.
Okay, great. And maybe one of these things that as we're working through and we can learn more from you about the elements that might make it, I mean, I'm really into this idea of making it easy for you all across the region. So trying to align what we do. I know that we are unique and we are different, but also it doesn't make sense to have a lot of extra regulations. I mean, we saw that with the liquor license process, Board Bill 60, that, you know, it was very different from the city and county. And if you do business in both, it just makes it adds an extra burden. So that's all the questions I have. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Patrick Nabian.
Again, I think, can we skip over to some members of the public too on there?
Okay. Okay. Ken Hirsch.
Great, same drill. I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great, and if you could just say your name, where you're from, what organization you represent.
So my name's Ken Hirsch. I am the former owner of the Go Euro Go food truck. I was also a member of the St. Louis Food Truck Association with Brian. And I sold my food truck in August of last year, in part just how difficult it is to run the business, but, you know, a variety of other reasons. But I'm also looking potentially to bring another franchised food truck to St. Louis, so this is still a big interest to me. One of the big things, besides just the length of the process, that you're not just doing one time, but every year you're having to go through all these steps over and over. You have to get new badges. You have to get your people to go to like Walgreens or CVS and get these passport photos. Then you have to bring them here and get them made up, and you're paying, I think it was $20 a piece plus the $15 for each one. It's just kind of a ridiculous process. And I remember the owner I bought the truck from, he told me, he said, it's going to feel like you're on candid camera when you had to come to City Hall with all the rooms you're going to up and down and back and forth between office and office. So it could definitely be made a more simplified process. Some other things I don't think were mentioned. For big events on the Go Euro Go truck, like going to the Food Truck Fridays at Tower Grove Park or something like, say, the Balloon Glow in Forest Park, I always wanted to bring like an extra barbecue pit, just like something you have at home. And I did that for a while. And then one time at the Balloon Glow, they came up and were about to shut me down, the fire department, because I had this barbecue pit there next to our truck. And they said, to have a barbecue pit, you have to go to the actual fire department on Jefferson. Then you have to fill out paperwork there. And then you pay another $50 for that. And you have to do that every single time that you need a fire truck or a fire pit or barbecue pit during the year. So that's one more thing. Another experience I had, and for years, Wells Fargo was a very big place for food trucks. It wasn't officially in the vending zone, but Monday through Friday, you could find anywhere from 4 to 12, sometimes food trucks parked out there. They had thousands of employees that would come out and get food. And right around the time of COVID, I'm not sure exactly what happened, but they shut all that down. They said, you're not in the vending district. I tried to come back after COVID there, and the street department sent out basically a car with its sirens going and pulled up behind us while we had a line of people and just shut us down on the spot. They let us finish serving who we had, and then I spoke with the street department to Sandy Colvin. Just nothing could be done. And I mean, it just seemed for years we just have no one on our side in the city. So really just this opportunity, and it's really encouraging because I can just tell you guys want things to be better for us and fair. So that's kind of my statement.
Thank you, sir, and we do. So with that, I mean, we do want to make it better, and I'm glad that you're hearing that. We're not gonna figure it all out today, but I think we've got a path forward and lots of questions. So I'm just gonna go through and see if any other committee members have questions. Alderwoman Spencer, are you still on? And if so, do you have questions or comments?
I don't. Thank you. I just thank you for your testimony.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard?
I don't. Thank you again as well for being here.
And I don't have any other questions for you, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Greg Mueller.
All right, Mr. Mueller, I'm going to run you through the same drill. If you could raise your right hand so I can swear you in. And do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. And just say your name, organization, and tell us about your experience.
Absolutely. My name is Greg Mueller. I'm the owner of Forest City Barbecue. We operate the food window out of the Fortune Teller Bar on Cherokee Street. And we also run a food stand, the Tower Grove Farmers Markets, Saturday mornings. I'm here to speak on behalf of all of the folks who run food trucks and run non-brick and mortar establishments in this city, because there is overlap between everyone who isn't a brick and mortar. It's not just food trucks. This is focused on food trucks, though. I just wanted to point out that it seems like we're all on the same page about the intricacies of the process and how many there are. I just wanted to point out that, as he mentioned, it is much easier to do it for a brick and mortar. However, it's a relative conversation here. It is much more complicated to get your licensing for a brick and mortar city than other cities, as well as the counties. So I know that that's probably a conversation for another time, but it just goes, I just want it to be known that this isn't just a food truck issue. This is a disconnect in communication between all the departments at City Hall. Seems like we're in agreement on that. I was looking to start a food truck of my own and learned all of this process and realized that this is not the path for me financially. I can make more money by doing it more DIY grassroots another way. So we went the route of doing, getting a commissary, online vending, outside of cottage laws, full up legal. I also did have to do a conditional use hearing. So I waited 2 months, postponed my business, to have 20 seconds at the end of a 3-hour meeting to get approved. That was ridiculous, just so I could vend food. So brick and mortar is much easier, but anything that requires this conditional use can really derail other folks as well. I want to take a moment to comment that Kelly Croy is the single most informed person in this entire building on many of these processes. She should be the person that you lean on if she's willing to. Obviously, I don't want to sign her up. She knows everything, and she has been imperative in helping more than a handful of folks I know personally getting through. So I really want to put that she should be a person that is involved. Her knowledge is very, very much full up. From that, I think I just wanted to comment a little bit further on the location of the food trucks. Obviously, we are in agreement that the Market Street is the wrong answer. I wanted to propose some very simple ideas. What does the county do? What does St. Charles County do? It was a very easy answer. They do, and see if we can emulate it. But also, we have a numerous amount of community involvement districts that are set up. Cherokee Street has one, the Grove, Vivo, all these places. Just a suggestion that maybe we could utilize these infrastructures that are already in existence to vet some of these through. It would be nice if we could get to a point where public streets are open for food trucks, but if that's too large, maybe we can hone it into CIDs, and that way we can at least get some movement happening in those. I know Cherokee Street would love to have a number of food trucks there, and I feel that most of the patrons and entrepreneurs there would feel that it wouldn't step on one of those, as we're looking to try to create an environment where we drive more people to. So that was pretty much what I had to say on that. Just wanted to support everyone and see if we can help make some change.
Great, thank you. Thank you for being here and testifying. I'm going to pass it on to members of the committee. Alderwoman Spencer?
No, but I think if anybody deserves a badge, it's Kelly.
Yes.
I would second that.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman Clark Hubbard.
I would second that also, and no questions. Thank you.
Alderman Aldridge? I don't really have any questions either. I do want to say thank you for, actually, can you just, I do have a question. Sorry, I take that back. Can you just, you don't have to get into specific details, but can you just talk about, just from the obstacles generally, what were, like, looking at the financial, picture, why you opted a different route?
Yeah, but obviously there's extra expenses for the food truck, the time that comes with it. Time is money for all of us entrepreneurs. And also, it was already such a difficult process to, one, understand, let alone navigate. I mean, we're all intelligent people. I spent 10 years at Boeing as a senior financial analyst before this. I'm definitely not a dumb person. I know processes, created them. But when I walked in here on the first day, I had no idea what to do. And when I sat down with Kelly, we spent hours and hours together before I finally understood it. And I know that everyone who has to go through the process of opening up a food service business has to go through this. And so it's really, like he was saying, everything being so disjointed in the communication. Kelly would give me information that I would then take back to the department that she got it from. And they would tell me they didn't know this, even though Kelly got this information from somewhere. And then, surface level example, but it definitely permeates through every single department that I've worked with has made an error at some point that has cost me either time or money. I agree that the health department is the best of our departments, but I've had snaps there of not being sent my health permit, and they're very understaffed. I don't put any of it on any of them. The business, the license collector is the one I'll give the most props to for knowing their ropes. But there's so many other ropes to know. I think they just put their fingers in their ears when it comes to learning about the other department's ropes, because it's just not their problem. But I've had many permits that I haven't gotten. I was operating for a time, and then they called me and told me that my building permits had never been approved, even though I had. So, it's there's a lot of issues here. It's great if we could really focus on the food trucks and giving them the same opportunities that folks like myself who do pop-up vending service and brick and mortars. And then, lofty stretch goal, it'd be nice to fix some of the communication to match other municipalities to make the flow and the finances a little bit less.
No, thank you. Thank you for being here. But I also think it's helpful for us to hear your real, but the real experience, right? I've heard different things, not shade on anybody, but just things permits, not the communication not happening. And of course it's not, I always say this in this line of work, it's not your fault, but still your problem, right? And so then that's super frustrating when you've got deadlines and, payroll and that. So I definitely appreciate the level of detail, I think, to help us figure out where to iron out some of those errors. So thank you.
Thank you.
Idajo Hansu.
Thank you for being here. You can speak in the mic. You can feel the take, and yes, you're already ready. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Thank you. And if you might just want to grab it. And I think if you could just turn on the button so it's green so we can hear you. And then if you could just tell your name, your organization, all that good stuff. And thank you for being here.
Awesome. Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Ajo, and I am the owner of Fufu and Sauce, which is a West African food truck. Everybody else has pretty much said it all. And I will echo all of that. And the last point that I was hoping to make is what the gentleman that just spoke made. There is no cohesion in communication across these departments at all. Last year was my first year ever starting my food truck. So this is pretty much very vivid in my mind still. I've cried going through this process because you will come here and you will get this information and then they will say, oh yeah, this is what we need. You go to the next department and they would say, no, we need this that you need to get from the previous department. Well, I was just there and they told me you're the one that I come to. So it's incredibly frustrating and it prolongs the entire process. And then with the fee, right? You have to pay this here, you have to pay this there, you have to pay this there. And then you get all these licenses. And those special events are not free. You know, Taste of St. Louis costs $2,000 to do. Festival of Nations costs $1,000 something to do. So it's like every step you're paying money to do this, and all of this is gonna come out of your bottom line. So then it just feels like nobody was listening, I guess. So now we're here. So I'm just also very grateful to be here and to see that something is, you know, able to get done and you guys want to help us get to it. But I definitely also agree with my comrades. The health department is pretty much like the one entity I feel like, okay, absolutely necessary going through their ropes and understanding why they need to do the things that they're doing, right? And why this is like a necessity to operate your food trucks. But everything else for me seems like everybody else just wants money out of you. And as a small business owner that is trying to figure it all out, it gets very frustrating because everybody talked about the commercial kitchens and all of that. That costs money. It costs money to rent those kitchen spaces because you need that to get this. But if my entire truck is permitted and it's a space that has all of those same things, it's like you're paying. And then every event that you have to do, because as everybody elaborated, you're not permitted to just go park anywhere and do business, right? You still have to pay for that. So I can understand how, you know, like I said, this is my second year into this. And then this is not a one-time thing. It's every year. And the fire permit, you have to get your inspections done at the 6 months point. So it's a lot of things to do, and the reward just doesn't reflect why you're putting all this work into it. And so unless you are really passionate about this and you believe to see it through, it's very easy to give up on all of this. And so I just wanted to add that. So everything else everybody said, and also that. So thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for not giving up on St. I'm going to go through and see if any of my committee members have questions. Alderwoman Spencer?
No questions, but thank you for testifying.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard?
I don't have any questions, but I do want to speak. Hey, Aja.
Hi.
I want to say that because my personal relationship with her, I want to take a few seconds to talk about her gift. She has gifted hands, and thank you for telling her for not giving up, encouraging her rather to not give up, because she has been through so much on not just not just this space but other spaces as well. So I thank you as well for not giving up, Aja. Her food is amazing.
Thank you.
She's a good person, which also makes a difference when you in your advocacy for people. So it really breaks my heart to hear that you cried in any of these experiences. So, and again, I'll just say I'm just glad that we're in this space to one, first and foremost, listen, but then we're all in positions to hopefully be able to right these wrongs and make it better for you all moving forward. And I'll just note before I get off that if anybody remembers my outfit that I got sworn in last April, Ajo's Gifted Hands made that, created that as well. So she's a gift, and thank you again for not giving up on St. Louis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair, member of the board. Thank you for being here. And I will say, I remember that outfit that Alderwoman Clark Hubbard had on. Everyone looked fabulous the first day getting sworn in, but you know, she did what she do best. She showed up and showed out, and it makes sense because I've also had your food. So your food is amazing, and if your food is like your fashion, like I see on Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, I need to get in contact with you so when we have another sworn in, I can get something, you know, dialed up for a man. Like, I do have one question. When you brought up that when you do these different events, so if it's Taste of St. Louis or Black Taste of St. Louis or whatever it is, you have to, did you say you have to get a license for outside of potentially paying the event people to be there? Do you have to get a license for each event for those?
No, so if you're doing these events and they permit you to bring your food truck, then you don't have to get any other permitting. But if these events are like setting up under a tent, then you have to go the process with the health department of acquiring like a temporary health permit. And also, like the gentleman was saying, anytime you step foot outside of that food truck, you're back to square one. So when he brought that extra fire pit, you had to go to the fire department and let them know, hey, I'm bringing something, and then they charge you $75 to get you a permit to be able to bring that pit. If you have, so sometimes it's really hot in the food trucks, especially when you're doing something like Festival of Nations or events that are 3 days long, and it's just very hot, and you put a tent in front of your food truck, and then maybe you're cooking in there, but you're just servicing it out. So everybody is not inside the food truck, it's so hot. That's additional permitting because you're outside of that food truck. So you're having to get, you know, a temporary health permit. That's $50 a day. So for those 3 days, that's an additional $50. Then the fire permit is $75 for you to be able to do that. So it's just, like I said, it feels like everybody wants money.
Mm-hmm. So if it's not like an official food truck event, so say like in St. Louis, we got the Whitaker concert coming up, and there's an individual like Mr. Green, he does a LaFab, which I think you're out there. If it's just like community events and they want a food truck at the event, do you have to get a license then for those different times that you'll be at those community events?
No. So if your food truck is up to code and you're already permitted and you're not doing anything outside of that truck, you can just take your truck and pay Mr. Green fee that he's charging you to be there.
Gotcha.
Right? If Mr. Green is charging $100 for you to be there, you pay that $100, the food truck is good to go, and you show up and you're good to go. But if, for example, I want to bring my deep fryer, because this time it's just going to be too hot to run to deep fryer, and I want to set that right outside of my food truck, and we're frying, then that is a propane permit, and that is a temporary, health permit, in addition to just bringing my food truck and paying Mr. Green.
And then last question. So the license that y'all get from the streets department, is that like a universal license? And that's, if I'm not mistaken, that's $500? Ooh.
Yeah, but then you're stuck in that stretch anyway, so it can be universal in that sense.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Alderman. Great questions. One last question that I probably should have asked everyone. How long, just roughly, did it take you when you started to get your food truck permit?
A good 3 months. Yeah.
3 months.
Yeah.
That's all the questions I have, but I just want to say thank you for being. I've heard about your food. I've seen it on the internet, so I definitely hopefully I will try it. But I mean, thank you again for being here, and thank you all of you. One of the challenging things that we're trying to do in this committee is really hear people's stories and what they experience. And sometimes it can be scary to come and talk, especially in a, a place like City Hall. But we really do thank you for, oh, we've got one more. Okay. Well, I can still share my sentiment, my feelings. So just thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, we've got one person who wants to testify online.
I have one person online, Scott Crecione. If you could unmute your camera and mic.
Welcome, sir. We just need to, if possible, see you on video.
All right. Hello.
Great. Can you raise your right hand and you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right. If you could just tell us your name and where you're from, what organization you represent, and tell us your story.
Yeah, I'm Scott Crocione. I am not only the vice president of the Food Truck Association, I also own Tasty Burger STL, the longest running food truck in St. Louis. I know we have 5 minutes, so I'm just going to rail through a bunch of things. You guys can say, hey, you can go back to this once we're done. My big issue, obviously, there's issue with the county of St. Louis and the St. Louis City County. You guys are city county, so I'm not going to get into their heck in a handbasket. But they have their own issues. But just Central City, like we said, it's like over $1,000 just to go through this process. It takes months. We were trying to get our permits to go to City SC the very first year, and the amount of just miscomms from, oh, you gotta go to this building. Okay, I went to that building. Oh, why'd you come here? Go to that building. We've already established this in this conversation, so we all understand. Going to 3 different departments, 3 different buildings, it's nonsensical. It's completely a big waste of time. We talk about the passport ID issue. Waste of time and money. And that's the problem is it's coming down to how many pounds of flesh can be stripped from food truck owners who are restaurant owners, who are business owners, who pay taxes in these cities. Like, how much flesh can we be stripped from? I go to the same issue with the county and with the city and with Jeffco and St. Charles and St. Peter's and everybody wants their pound of flesh. And the issue is what region of the DMA, the St. Louis Designated Metro Area, is going to be the first to say, enough's enough, let's be adults, and let's coordinate. So something is simplify everything in your own buildings. I go to St. Louis County for their health stuff. It's all one building. They also lost my health permit. The city hasn't done that yet, but you guys have had your own issues, which we've already gone over. $500 fee to go park on the streets, it's ridiculous. We know this at this point. There's been litigation even about this. You can get rid of it at this point. The health inspection, that's really kind of my bigger issue right now. When you're talking about a health inspection within the city, in this county, and then St. Charles County, and St. Peters County, and Monroe County, in Illinois, and then you go to Jeffco, it's the same inspection. You use the same inspection across the board. But yet, when I go to the city and get an inspection for my health, there's no coordination anywhere. So I could have 8 inspections in a week. And it just gets frustrating because guess what? Every one of those inspections, I lose money on. And I lose days of I can work on. So this is something that just gets frustrating with counties. Another thing is, I know sorry, my computer was trying to update, worst timing ever. Another thing is there is a lack of communication. We've heard this from a couple other owners, and we've heard this from a couple other people who've been like, well, I just went to this department, went to that department. It's like, yes. The lack of comms, it's like, not only am I paying an exorbitant amount to come to the city, I'm then getting no one who could communicate within departments. And I'll be honest, I just looked at my sheets for this year in the city. I've made $1,500 total on the 3 times I've visited, and I'm going to pay way more than that in licensing fees and inspections and all this stuff. It just becomes frustrating to like, I am trying to get to the city. Our truck spent 11 years not going into the city. And now we're trying to go to the city, and it's like, oh, great. No, we're going to make sure it's not convenient at all. That's frustrating. We even talked about the food deserts. Brian talked about it. We've seen this with a couple other trucks. And we're trying to take food trucks into these areas, and people are like, oh, I do smash burgers. And they're like, man, I haven't had a burger like this in my life. And you're used to, like what Brian said, McDonald's, Burger King. It's like, no, this is the way food's supposed to be. It's no longer just pre-made stuff getting sent to you. This is handcrafted food from food trucks. It has evolved quickly. and our regulations should reflect that. We're treated not only as restaurants, and then we're demonized as thieves of these restaurants, but we are restaurants, and we have our own limitations and issues. So there's just a lot of frustration from us owners that we are also business owners. And I will argue, small business owners, stop saying the word small. Everything you do is large because it impacts your family. Every decision you make it's your house on the line, it's your family on the line, it's your income on the line, you give up insurance at a business probably, 401k somewhere, whatever, to start something and try to grow something to take care of your family. And to have government officials say, yeah, but we just don't care. That part gets so demoralizing. And at least there are some people here, I've seen a couple of you that are actually like, we want to do something to help. But it's like the best thing is to just get out of the way, communicate, and just let the people who know what they're doing do their thing. I mean, that's just the part for me that just gets frustrating. I don't have a timer in front of me, so I apologize if I ran over my time at all. But just some things, we only have so many pounds of flesh as food truck owners. We can be. I mean, physically, I got more than I could spare. But you get the point. We can't keep taking on the chin at every turn from every municipality in every county. Somebody has to step up and finally be an adult and say, enough's enough. We are decimating small businesses. We have no infrastructure for commissaries, by the way, and we have no safe parking. I mean, some of the rules that we have are just not realistic also. So there's just a lot of issues that if you really want to get into the ugly details of it, food trucks are looked at like the bastard children of the royal family. Whereas all we are is just fathers and mothers and brothers and sisters and humans who we couldn't afford $1 million to open a restaurant. We could afford $50K in a business loan to start a business. And that's, our business is food. And for us to get demonized so often is something that just, it's not enough. I mean, the public sentiment shows nearly 80% favorability to food trucks. Let's stop getting in the way. And let's start paving the way. So I'm going to yield to questions and to anybody else who wants to have their 5 minutes. Sorry.
You're good, and we actually have a buzzer and it has not gone off yet. So you are perfectly within your time limit.
I was a broadcaster, so that's amazing. I did not go over.
Thank you, sir. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask the other members of the committee if they have questions for you. Alderwoman Spencer?
I don't have any questions, but I can tell you I'd rather have a pound of your burgers than a pound of your flesh.
Appreciate it.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard?
No questions, thank you.
Yeah, I was trying not to do a Hannibal Lecter joke there. Alderman Aldrich?
No fava beans on my truck.
No questions, just thank you, Mr. Scott, for what you do and the work that you and the president do for the Food Truck Neighbor Association have to run. But I also want to give a shout out to, I know Alderwoman Clark has done it here on this committee in the past. Shout out to the small business office here in the city of St. Louis that works very closely with a lot of our businesses and help folks who are trying to start businesses and small businesses, really walk them through. As I worked in a license collector, going to the license collector office, then you got to go to the collector of revenue to pay your taxes, then you got to go to the building division, then you got to go to the health department, then you got to go to the streets, like all these things that can be overwhelming. But our business assistance center on the 4th floor is a huge help as the committee and Chairwoman Velasquez is trying to cut red tape. As that still exists, the business assistance center does amazing work. So thank you.
Thank you. I want to second that, Alderman Aldrich. I don't have any other questions. Thank you for laughing at my bad joke that nobody else got. No, but really, thank you for your testimony. I think, what you said and adding a face and a story to this problem that is, that from the outside seems like not insurmountable, but it seems complex hearing the person part of this, the mother, the father, I think makes a difference. Scott, did you have something else you want to add real quick?
Yeah, just something to think of in general, since you guys are representatives. You can just think like, oh, what's $100 when your budget's in the millions? Well, just remember to ask somebody, What if tomorrow somebody racked up $100 charge on your debit account? What would that do to you? So just when you're thinking of these licensings and these fees and stuff and think, oh, we have to pay for things in the city, also think about these individual people. Like, I have a kid in daycare. If someone took $500 out of my account, I have to pull my kid out of daycare. So when you're thinking about like that $500 fee to park in one spot, that's my kid's daycare fee. So that's just something that I'm passionate because it matters more as somebody who has like a family and a business who's trying to grow.
Thank you again. With that, I think, Madam Clerk, do we have one more person who wants to testify online?
Yes, we have one more, Jennifer McDonald.
All right. Thank you again, Scott. Ms. McDonald, I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand and do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And I know that we've met, but if you could introduce yourself, the organization that and with, and again, 5 minutes by today.
Sure. So my name is Jennifer McDonald, and I am an assistant director of activism at the Institute for Justice. IJ is a national nonprofit organization, and we've been advocating for entrepreneurs for over 30 years and advocating for food truck owners for, gosh, at least 10 years, if not longer than that. I also run an initiative at IJ called the Cities Work Project, and Cities Work partners with cities across the country to help them identify and then rectify some of the regulatory barriers that entrepreneurs and other business owners face. And so we've been working closely with the Special Committee on Red Tape, as well as, Alderwoman Velasquez, Alderman Oldenburg, Alderman Aldridge, and others to help figure out just kind of how the city of St. Louis can reform their regulatory practices to support small business owners. So I wanted to talk today just about kind of the national perspective on the benefits that food trucks bring to communities and why food trucks are so important for St. Louis. One of the criticisms that we often hear of food trucks is a concern that they will take business away from brick and mortar restaurants, and that's why lots of cities like St. Louis have a proximity ban for where food trucks can vend. But research that we've done has shown that food trucks do not serve as real competitors to restaurants because their business models are so different. And in fact, food trucks can actually complement restaurants. So say you're going to an area because you want to eat at that food truck, you may decide to have a drink at a bar nearby, or you may go for a snack and decide to stay for dinner at a brick and mortar restaurant. There's lots of reasons why driving foot traffic to an area is really good, not just for the food trucks, but for the brick and mortars in those areas as well. And by making some of these areas more populated, they can help improve security. So by having more eyes on the street, so we call it, there's quantitative research that shows that that has a direct positive impact on public safety. There's more people around, there's more activity, and so it's more difficult for criminal activity to take place. And so I think that is an argument both for supporting food trucks, eliminating those proximity bans, as well as for making it easier for them to operate longer into the evening so that they can provide more food options for people in food deserts, make sure that the streets are more vibrant and therefore safer. I also wanted to talk about how important food trucks are, particularly for BIPOC entrepreneurs and providing a path to entrepreneurship. We know that commercial rents continue to go up and up and up. And so entrepreneurs who maybe wanted to open a brick and mortar restaurant find that a food truck might be a more cost-effective way to do that. And so this is particularly important for driving entrepreneurship in communities of color. And it's another reason why lowering those fees, it costs over $1,000 to open a food truck in St. Louis in permitting fees alone. So it's really important that we lower those fees and make sure that this path to entrepreneurship is accessible as possible for folks from every different socioeconomic group possible. We have been working closely with Alderman Aldridge, and we would love to, when BB 14 is eventually heard, make comments specifically on that legislation. But we just wanted to join you all and tell you just how important food trucks are. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about how other cities and states regulate food trucks as well, and anything that we can do to provide assistance to the committee as you think about what you can do to support food trucks. We would be happy to help, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have today as well.
Great, thank you, Ms. McDonald. First, I'm going to ask Alderwoman Spencer, you still, if you're there, do you have any questions? All right, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
No additional questions, but thank you so much for giving us some context and thank you for that work you're doing.
Alderwoman Sunier.
No questions, but thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. I would love to I'm looking forward to hearing your testimony, your Board Bill 14 with this committee at some point. And I think giving us, as Alderwoman Clark Hubbard said, giving us some grounding or some context for what's happening around the nation. So what I've heard, just kind of recap, I mean, the proximity ban is something that you've seen not work in other cities. Obviously, one of the things that we've talked about is making sure, trying to have an online portal for all of these processes. Lowering the fees. Are there any other sort of best practices that you didn't mention that you heard today in the reverse, like we should not do that you'd like to comment on?
No, not in the reverse. I would just second that if there's some sort of reciprocity that can be established for the region, that would be wonderful because these businesses are mobile. And so we're seeing other jurisdictions do that. So within the last few years, the states of, I think, both Florida and Georgia and probably a few others have put in state level food truck permits so that trucks can vend anywhere in the state. So obviously that's not your purview on this committee, but if there's anything that the committee can do to bring the regulations in line with the neighboring jurisdictions and counties, that would be huge as well.
Great, thank you. Well, I have no questions at this time. Got to catch up too, so I appreciate you making the time to be here. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody else in the audience that would like to testify who hasn't? All right, Madam Clerk, do we have any written testimony?
We have none.
Thank you. So we'll go with that. We'll go to announcements, just so we're continuing the conversation. So obviously we're going to talk more about food trucks in part because Alderman Aldrich has Board Bill 14. So I encourage you, if you haven't worked with him or there has been things that you've not shared, to do that while he's, now. And I know I don't want to speak for him, but I'm sure we'll be looking for testimony when we hear that bill too. On June 3rd at the same time, 3 p.m. here in the Kennedy Room, we'll hear from small business owners. So if you've got some friends who are small or are food truck owners or not food truck owners, but want to talk about small business, we're looking to really identify the red tape in lots of different places to see ways that we can cut it back. So June 3rd, small businesses generally. June 10th at 3 p.m. here in the Kennedy Room. Our focus will be on special events. So again, if you know folks that have been, impacted by this, we would love to hear from them. So with that, do any other members of the committee have announcements? Taking that pause as
No, I just want to say thank you, Chairwoman. This was a great hearing. I feel like we really got some constructive feedback, and I'm excited to work on this issue.
Thank you, Alderwoman. All right, well, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn today's meeting.
So moved.
Great, well, with that, we have adjourned. Thank you, everybody.